Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Workplace Navigation Podcast. I'm Mike Sanders, your host. This podcast is focused on presenting creative solutions to typical problems the workplace experiences. A quick note on organizations. Everett Souders wrote a book way back in 1989 entitled The Unnatural Act of Management. He was an accomplished business consultant and drew on over 30 years of experience to describe management as an unnatural profession of producing results through others. He framed the challenge of organizational life of getting people to collectively produce value as inherently unnatural. This in mind, and after getting feedback at over 100 management presentations and symposiums and conferences nationwide, it occurred to me that collectively, the workforce is a genius at management and solving problems. So our podcast is dedicated to revealing the brilliance of our workforce as a learning organization. So our podcast discusses the workplace more as an organism that can be successfully navigated to become enriching, healthy, and even transformative for the average employee. So let's bring in our featured guest today. Welcome, Heather Greiner, to the Workplace Navigation Podcast.
Thanks, Mike. Good to be here.
Thank you for being our featured guest today. I really appreciate it. Before we get started, why don't you tell us a little bit about your career, your education, your training? What guided you and brought you to where you are today?
Sure thing. Thanks for having me. I started my career in technical writing officially 30 years ago, when I graduated from UC Santa Barbara, man, way back in the 90s. I, but before that, I grew up working in my dad's shop. My dad was a mechanic, and mechanics go to the book. We always think they're magic, and they just know things. They listen to the car and they know how to fix it. I grew up hearing RTFI, read the effing instructions. RTFM, read the effing manual.
Mm,
Because my dad always had Chilton and Mitchell manuals, and they told you everything you needed to know about the car you were working on. And my dad had hundreds of these books. So I grew up going to the library, going going to the instructions. And this is the days before Google could tell you, before YouTube could show you how to do things. We had to have books to tell you how to do it. You had to learn on the job. So I did. And then I went and got an English degree because I loved to write. And computers were still fairly new back then. The internet was burgeoning.
mhm.
And I got my first job because I was an English major who could write. I worked for a foreign-owned company who had all foreign engineers from various countries. None of them had English as a first language. In some cases, it was their third or fourth language. But they didn't have anyone who could communicate effectively to their English-speaking audience. So that was where I came in. I came in because I had a mastery of the English language. I had technical acumen from my dad, but there was no such thing as a technical writing degree back then.
Mhm.
We were journalists
Yeah,
or English majors. We
got it.
weren't technical writers.
Yeah, yeah. I'm aware of that. I was a technical writer at that time too, so I hear what you're saying. So describe the issue you face, but more importantly, how did when you first encountered this issue, how did it affect you? What were your initial reactions to it?
I came in as a technical writer, as a valued employee, as a valued member of an engineering team. That was my first introduction to being a technical writer. I had to learn how to be a technical writer from engineers. Um, and when I moved on to other companies, I've heard multiple times, oh, tech writers, we don't need them. We have the README files in GitHub. The engineers can just dump the information in there. We have Stack Overflow. We have Substack. We have all of these other tools. We don't need you. You are unnecessary.
Mm,
You are in my way.
mm,
Those are the things that I heard a couple of times. In
Wow.
30 years, I've heard it more than a handful of times. When I've been hired to come in, and then I'm told by the team that I'm working with, people who didn't interview me are now telling me, we don't need you. You're in
Mm,
the way. You're
mm,
going to slow us down.
wow. That must have been an incredible experience.
It was a kick in the teeth.
Yeah.
It really was.
Well, how
It,
did you handle this problem? How did you create a solution to this that benefited everyone?
for me, blessedly growing up with a mechanic who was German, man of little words, few words. He said what needed to be said in whatever way he needed to say it to get his point across and moved on. My dad was raised by an engineer, a sound engineer. So he had a mentality of say as few words as possible to get your point across. When I'm told I don't have value, I get to take my ego out of it because it's not about me as a person. I have value. I, as a person, have value. Someone saw value in me in the interview process, and very rarely is the interview process a 5-minute conversation. I've been interviewed by panels, sometimes 5 or 6 people before I'm invited to come in.
Mm-hmm.
So I have value as a writer, as a person. So the first time I heard it, I took it personally that I did not have value as a person.
Mm-hmm.
And that hit hard. And I had a mentor that I called and she laughed at me and said, of course, you have value. Stop taking it personally. This is an engineer. You know engineers. And I speak engineer, but in the same way that I speak French, I am not French. And I am found out instantly in France that I am not French, though I speak the language. So if an engineer ever asked me, write this API, no, I can't. Tell me what it does. Tell me what an engineer needs, what another engineer needs to do to use your API. That is where I shine because the one thing I know about engineers is they don't have time to talk. And what I could tell them was, you can tell me one time. And then the next time someone asks you, you can say, go talk to Heather. Go look at the website that Heather created where the documentation lives. Leave me alone. And that becomes the answer. I can do your heavy lifting for the writing side. You don't want to write it. You want to dump it and expect someone to know it. But how many questions do you get asked from your README file, from the Slack channel that just has your conversation with someone explaining your process and how to work with the tool you created? You can tell me, and then I can ask questions from different perspectives, from the different teams that I interact with, and knowing how they interact with systems and how they use things.
Mm-hmm.
I get to know people and I get to know engineers, and I get to be the one when I've had an engineer say, no one's going to ask that question.
Mm-hmm.
I did. No one's going to push that button. I did. Well, no one's going to. How will they know if I don't tell them not to push it?
Mm-hmm.
They're going to call you when the system breaks.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I get to take that burden off of you. I'm not here to make your life hell. I'm not here to walk into your meeting and have everyone roll their eyes and say, oh no, the tech writer is here. We got to add 2 weeks to our project. No,
Mm-hmm.
send me the bits and pieces you have and let me build it. And then all you have to do is review what I've written and I'll send it to you in a pull request.
Mm-hmm.
I do docs like code. I live in your world. I don't ask you to function in mine.
So what I'm hearing from you, Heather, is that you're making their jobs easier and more efficient by your value. So you're communicating that to them. If you were going to create a rule, Heather's rule number 15, out of this experience, what would it be? What would that rule be? If you face this, do this kind of thing. What do you think?
Be the one who removes the blocker. Don't be a blocker. I never, ever want to be the reason a release gets held up. I never want to be the reason an engineer does not feel empowered to do their work and solve their own problems.
So you're talking about it from the context of being a tech writer, right?
Yes.
Okay. What about the greater though question? When you're told you don't have value, how would you handle that? Generally speaking, what would be the rule around that?
Don't take it personally because it's not about me as a person. If someone sees me only as Heather, the tech writer,
Hmm.
like in the cartoon strips, Tina, the tech writer, if that's all you see me as, then you're missing me as a person. And then you see me as a blocker
Hmm.
because you don't see a whole person. So make sure I present as a whole person. I I have had to bow out of team building events because it's after hours and I need to go pick up my son.
Hmm.
And I say, I'm sorry, I'm a single mom. I would love to join you and do this team building, but I can't. I have my child. And then I become a whole person. Oh, she has a life when she leaves the
Hmm.
building. And that I endear myself to
Hmm.
people that way. I become a whole person.
Could we say then for Heather's rule number 15, um, when I'm told I don't have value, I would then show my value and demonstrate that I'm a whole person. Is that what you're saying?
That's what I say when someone says we don't need you.
We don't need you. Yes.
I say you don't need a technical writer. I force them to answer the question. You don't need a technical writer. Is that what you're saying? Or are you saying I have no value? I will straight up say to an engineer, are you saying I don't have value as a person and I am unnecessary as a person?
Hmm.
Because someone here saw value.
Hmm.
And it's like, I look at them and say, is that what you're saying? And I really force them to address, because language is where I live.
Hmm.
Are you communicating effectively? And when they look at me and say, no, of course, that's not what I'm saying. We don't need a tech writer. Really? Because you're not communicating well. That's where I live.
Yeah, I love this. I remember when I joined a company called Hughes Aircraft,
Mhm.
and I was a tech writer working with 5 senior scientists. And my director said, "Why don't you introduce yourself to these senior scientists? I don't have time." So I went to each office, and out of 5 senior scientists, 3 of them told me, "I don't need you. You don't have value." Just like you're saying. So what did I do? And maybe you've done the same thing, but I took their work from the past and I edited it and made it better. And I gave that to them because they wouldn't give me any new work. And they saw that and they go, wow. And then as they were producing new work, I would just grab it and edit it. And I demonstrated my value, which I think you're talking about. And so that's an avenue to, I think also what you were talking about is don't take it personally, meaning don't let that stop you from demonstrating your value. Don't let that intimidate you into thinking you have no value because as you spoke, you were interviewed and screened by numerous people. Obviously, you had value. And so show your value, be confident in your value, and demonstrate it in some way to prove your point. And I will say, in my case, after 2 years, none of those senior scientists would write anything without running it by me first voluntarily because I demonstrated my value. And if you're competent, uh, you'll win. Am I saying, I don't want to missummarize what you're saying, but is that true?
That's exactly it. One of the first things I did early in my career, I worked for a company that did tax software
Mm-hmm.
for Fortune 50 companies.
Mm-hmm.
And this was back in the day when we shipped out shoe boxes full of disks
Mm-hmm.
that they had to use to install the software.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked, how many support calls do you get on install? And they showed me, they ran the report and they showed me how many support calls they got. And it was, especially in tax time, the first few months of the year, where they were slammed.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, okay, how many times do you repeat
Ah,
a certain number of things on those calls.
yes.
And they said, oh, well, it's everyone fails it at this step. Okay. How do we, and what's the response? Oh, the response is always the same. Okay. So I, and these are in the days of hard copy manuals as well. So in the boxes, I said, what size is the box? And I said, okay, let me try this. We printed on fire engine red paper. Before you call tech support, do these 10 things.
Yes.
And that was on the top. And I said, do
Yeah.
me a favor,
Yeah.
track how many calls you get
Yeah.
after this. The calls went down over 50% because everyone failed on the same step. We provided the guidance ahead of time. Here's where you're going to fall down because it's hard.
Mhm.
And there's something you're going to miss. You're going to miss this checkbox. So look for it. We tell
Yeah.
them before the process started, look for it. And the calls immediately went down, and
Yeah.
that was measurable success.
Okay. Another add-on to Heather's rule number 15, measurable metric.
Mhm.
Have a measurable metric. I remember there was a show, an English show a while back called IT Crowd. I don't know if you've ever
Uh-huh.
seen it. Anyway, the first thing that they would say in tech support was, "Is your computer plugged in?"
Have you tried turning it off and turning it back
Turn it
on
off,
again? Is
turn it
the
off. So,
first response.
I think tech support's a good idea, like FAQs that you have or a scripts that you write for tech support reduces reduces time to fix 100%. It's just incredible. So having said all this, so we could say that maybe your rule of thumb is if I'm told I have no value, prove the value. Don't be dissuaded by that. Don't be hurt by it because you obviously have value. Go in and demonstrate your value and demonstrate it using measurable metrics. Can we call that your rule?
Yes.
Okay,
Measurable metrics are the best because those directly correlate to the bottom line. And
excellent.
when you think about how much, and I've put it like this to people who only think in dollar signs and bottom lines, how much does your top engineer make? Don't
Yes,
care about a name. How
yes,
much does that person make? How much does she make in a year? She's well into six figures. So hourly is an insane number. So
yes,
how many hours is that engineer solving problems rather than writing code for you?
yes.
If I can turn these hours that they did not have to take away from work, this is the
Excellent.
money I'm
Yeah,
saving you
yes, yes,
by doing this because tech writers are invisible. We
yes.
provide invisible
Right.
help, and
Yes,
so providing metrics can be difficult. So we have to put it into a bottom line of how much money do your
yes.
engineers make per
Yeah.
hour?
So if you don't have an obvious measurable metric, you need to be creative
Hmm.
with it and create one.
You need to show
Okay,
them
this is
where we solve and where we relieve pain.
yes. I think you've given me enough to be dangerous.
Yes,
Thank you for getting
that's my
thank you
job.
for giving the audience this. Before we close out today, how can our audience get in touch with you if they'd like more information or to collaborate more?
LinkedIn is the best place to reach me for professional interaction. I respond to emails through there. My name, Heather Greiner, Greiner. There's
Okay.
only one of me,
Okay.
um, or at least I was the first one on LinkedIn, so I don't have any numbers after my name. You
Okay.
can always find me there, and
Okay.
I'm always happy to answer questions and help.
Thank you so much for being on the podcast today. Loved it, learned a lot, and wish you well. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Mike.
Take care. Bye
You
bye.
too.